Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to Chelsea Fan TV and welcome back to another episode of the Chelsea Fan TV podcast. Before we get into today's episode, please smash the likes on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And please feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below if you agree or disagree with anything that we've said in this episode. As always, delighted to be joined by Lewis. Bro, great to have you. Not the best of games on the weekend. We won't go back into that in too much detail, but it's now obviously 4 Premier League games without a win, 2 points from the last 12. The honeymoon period, I think, is very much over for Graham Potter now, and the hard work begins. We're sitting 7th in the table. It's unfamiliar. Lewis, how are you feeling at the moment as a Chelsea fan? Because we felt okay with Potter coming in terms of we had a good run of results, and now things are kind of going downhill a little bit. But I've got to say, he needs to be criticised a little bit, the manager. But ultimately, how much difference can we expect from what is the same group of players? And as we've said before, this group of players isn't really good enough on the whole anyway. So why should we expect any better?
Exactly what I've been saying. There's too much criticism on Graham Potter. Even though I do think Potter's making mistakes too, I'm allowing him to make those sorts of mistakes because he needs to figure out his best squad. I know it's not ideal that we do it right now, but we shouldn't have sacked a manager a month into a season. We're here. The problem is the same problem Tuchel had. The players. The players just aren't good enough. Like, we don't trust our goalkeepers. The defense, I don't really have too much to say about. I think that's still our strongest attribute. Midfield has no creativity, and we've got our best midfielders in decline. Our attacking mids have no creativity. Our wingers are being misprofiled continuously. And our strikers don't get given any service. So I don't know why people expect Potter to make a gold mine out of this, because we can clearly have one look at the squad, and the squad isn't good enough. Any game that we have played in like the last 5-6 matches, we haven't looked good enough. Even during the winning run, when everyone said we're being negative, we still weren't playing well enough. Now, we're not winning, we're losing.
Yeah,
people are starting to realise.
Yeah, it's a problem. Obviously, missing key players is not ideal, but when we had them, the performances still weren't that great anyway. And it's gonna take a lot of time to work this out, to fix this. I think it's clear that there's not a lot of players in the team and the squad aren't good enough to play for Chelsea. And 2, I think there's a large amount of players that don't actually even want to be at the club anyway. So that's 2 massive problems that have got to be sorted out. We've got to be in a position where we've got players that are actually of the required standard to play for Chelsea. And then I don't care who you are. If you don't want to be at the football club, they need to be moved on. It doesn't matter if they're a big name. If you don't want to be here, then they've got to be moved on, because that's kind of spreads bad vibes around the dressing room and all that sort of thing. But I just wanted to touch on something that I think came out today. Simon Phillips, generally very reliable, his top source saying that there's quite a number of players that are unhappy and unsettled within the Chelsea squad, not happy kind of with the London lifestyle. I think Kovacic and Mendy were 2 names that are kind of 2 players considering their futures. Kovacic actually out of contract at the end of 2024. What are your thoughts on that? Because for me, it's obvious, and it's not really a surprise to hear that there are members of the squad that are unsettled and unhappy.
Yeah, I'm not too surprised by it all, but I don't really have any sympathy for any of them either. You lot are privileged, you lot are earning 6 figures a week, your job's to entertain, and you haven't been entertaining all year. If your name's not Silva, James, Kovacic, Trevor Chalobah, or any of the new signings, leave. Please leave. And I really won't bat an eyelid. We need a rebuild. I keep going back to Klopp and Arteta when I talk about rebuilds, and they've cleared out their squad from the squad that was there when they first joined. So I don't know why people are trying to hoard these players like they're going to be any good for us. The majority are going to need to leave for us to actually progress. So let them go. Let them go.
I think as well. Obviously it's happened now, but I like the timing of getting rid of Tuchel has not helped this situation either. It was obvious, to Bowley and co that, he wasn't the guy. So don't let him have a transfer window and let him have a handful of games at the start of the season when things clearly aren't right and he's not the right guy. And then you bring a sort of a long-term manager in like Potter, who has got no players that he wanted, and he's got and he's had no pre-season with the team, and he's just been landed in what is a massive mess. There's no way Potter would have signed Aubameyang. There's probably he may not have signed Koulibaly either. You know, as a manager coming in, you're like basically just dropped into a mess and a group of players of which probably half he doesn't want and half that aren't even good enough. So to expect anything more from him is I think a little bit unrealistic. Yes, you can expect better from him tactics wise. Yes, you can criticize selections and whatnot, and ultimately the performance will fall on him. But it's no surprise now that it's another manager, and yet this group of players are just week in, week out getting away of just putting in mediocre performances as if they just don't care. That can't continue to happen. But do you find I mean, it doesn't really matter now, but do you find the timing a little bit strange? You know, for Potter to really make a good go of it this season, he should have been given the pre-season and should have had the transfer window.
Yeah, but like that's all the reason why Potter should be the last person we get at. Criticize where you want to criticize, and that's fair enough. Like, I think there's been times where his in-game management hasn't been good enough, where we haven't started games well, and that's fair to criticize. But to compare to Tuchel already, to say get him out, bring Tuchel back in, you need to get over it. You really do. Like, anyone who's still crying over Tuchel probably hasn't supported the club longer than a decade. Just call it what it is. Because we've all seen heartbreak. We've seen Ancelotti get sacked in the tunnel like an hour after the last game of the season. We've seen Jose get sacked same way as Tuchel after a meaningless group stage game in the Champions League. And he was the best manager in the world at that time. Same thing when he got sacked again. Even the likes of Conte, Sarri leaving would have hurt depending on whether you like the manager or not. Lampard leaving. Why are we going to act like this is any different? Like, yeah, I wanted Tuchel to build a dynasty, but this squad wasn't doing well with him either. He wouldn't make things any better right now. Personnel has to change, not the manager. Not the manager.
Yeah, well, it's just people don't. I think people don't understand what is required to make a football team. You know, how can you expect, you know, that suddenly to be, you know, a finished article within 10, 11 games? You know, the answer is not consistently changing the manager. We've consistently done that. And we consistently, for year in, year out, since 2017, been absolutely a million miles away from winning the Premier League. We all want to win the Premier League. Yeah, it's nice to pick up domestic cups and it's nice to win the Champions League. But the Premier League is what you do week in, week out. It's the ultimate hallmark of consistency over a 38-game season. And we have been miles and miles off it since we won it in 2017. We've been nowhere near. And the only way that's going to change is by clearing the squad out, giving the manager the required time to shape the squad that he wants, and then build from there. And I hear people saying that, oh yeah, but it's in Chelsea's DNA to win trophies. Chelsea existed before Roman, and winning wasn't in the DNA then. And you, at some point, we might have to readjust. People might have to readjust their expectations. You know, maybe we're not going to win a trophy every season. Maybe we might go 1 or 2 seasons without winning something, and maybe that's what it's going to have to take. But do you think people have got to readjust their expectations? There's almost like a sort of a sense of self-entitlement that supporting Chelsea means that we have to win trophies, and like anything else is unacceptable.
No, like you can keep the standard the same, and I don't mind that, but have an acknowledgement that we might not reach it right now. Keep it at the same. Like, I demand top 4, I demand a domestic cup or to make finals and that sort of stuff. Keep the same standard and winning mentality going, but I think we also need to understand we need to build a squad that can reach those levels first. And Potter can't just pull magic out of his arse. That can't happen.
Yeah, nice. I think it is as simple as that. This is going to take time to do, and whether Potter's the right man or not is going to, like, you know, you'll have to wait and see on that. But it's, as you say, it's way too early to be criticizing the manager, calling for him to be removed. There's like as if, you know, anyone else would come in and do any better. I mean, we could have anyone in charge now, any manager, and it would be the same. It's as simple as that. Just last thing on this though, mate. We sit 7th at the moment in the table. We've got Newcastle last game before the World Cup, obviously. How concerned are you for our top 4 chances? Because yes, we might add reinforcements in January, and yes, key players will be back after the World Cup, but the run's not easy. 2 games against Liverpool, 2 games against City, aways at United and Arsenal. this is going to be really tricky.
Yeah, things are going to get worse before it gets better. We'd be lucky if we even get one win this week, but I don't know what more to say on it. I'm trying to build my confidence for the City game, but their B team could smoke our A team, so I don't know what our B team is going to do. And Newcastle, we're literally just walking into an L. Just walking into it. If we even take a draw, I'll be happy. But that's what we're going to be like this season. We're going to be the joke team. So we just have to fill our position for this season, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if we can just get that 4th place, and I think that ultimately is the aim, really. I mean, if we make a domestic cup final, we win one, then great. And with the Champions League, you just never know what's going to happen. But obviously, Carabao Cup starts tomorrow night. City away in a 3rd round, not probably the worst draw we could have got, alongside maybe Liverpool away. It's not going to be first teams either way. There's going to be a lot of rotation. But how important is the Carabao Cup this season for Chelsea? I mean, I know people don't get excited by it, but it represents the first chance at winning a trophy. We've taken it seriously in the past. Lost on penalties last season when we should have easily beaten Liverpool within the 120 minutes. We had so many chances, and obviously that goal chalked off. That should never have counted. I mean, how important is it to you? I mean, are you that bothered if we go out tomorrow night, or is it, I mean, where do you stand with it?
Either way, I'll be okay. Like, if we lose, fine. That's less fixtures we have to worry about. If we win, we've knocked out the favourites. Instantly makes our chances that much better. And I would like to see us win a domestic cup. Would be nice for Potter. Just be a nice day out for Chelsea, really, even if the season hasn't been good enough for us. But yeah, I'm fine whether we win or lose, genuinely. Like, just don't get embarrassed, please. I just want to see how the fringe players play. I want to see who impresses me.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, look, I think the Carabao Cup's the most exciting thing, but I would like us to do well in it. I'd like us to win it. I think, as we've said, we haven't won a domestic trophy since the FA Cup in 2017. I think we've lost the last 5 or 6 domestic cup finals in a row at Wembley. So to get a domestic cup in the cabinet again, it's been too long, and that does need to change. It's gonna be tricky tomorrow night. How much rotation do you expect from Potter? Because in games where we've expected heavy rotation, like Zagreb, for example, we haven't seen it. The likes of Lewis Hall and Amari Hutchinson are in the squad. They should feature. I would expect Hutchinson's far more likely to start than Lewis Hall is, but don't rule out both of them starting. What would you like to see tomorrow? Sort of a mix of youth and experience, or do you think, maybe we just need to kind of heavy rotation and then full focus on Newcastle?
Rotate wherever you can. Genuinely, just wherever you can. I don't mind you giving the players who aren't playing in the World Cup a run out, like Aubameyang. Jorginho is injured, so he can't even do that.
Yeah, he's got a slight doubt, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. We're an absolute mess with our injuries. But yeah, just, you know what? Rotate where necessary. In fact, we can't have any more injuries. Rotate everyone. Rotate everybody.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about rotation, but there's not an awful lot of options that we can actually do. Obviously, we know Mendy's going to play. Even if we go with a back 4, like Azpilicueta is going to have to play. One of Chalobah or Koulibaly is going to have to play. Maybe they'll both have to play. And then left back, obviously, you could play Lewis Hall or Cucurella might play. But there's not an awful lot of rotation we can do within the back line and the defence. Midfield, you've got a few more options there. Jorginho's a doubt. Maybe you wouldn't risk him, but maybe you would if he's not playing in the World Cup. He's got a month off at the end of this week, so you might be more inclined to do that. Would you say Dennis Zakaria a must start for you?
Has to be, especially after the last game against Zagreb. There's no reason why he shouldn't be starting. If Chukwuemeka was fit, I'd say him too, but not him. So Gallagher probably, Broja, Pulisic, maybe Sterling if you want to give him the run out against his old club, or if not him, Ziyech.
Would you not play Hutchinson on the right or left or right from the off?
You could do if you want, but I feel like it's more likely to see him off the bench. Like, he hasn't even started in general. I feel like throwing him to City away. Big baptism by fire for him. So I don't know.
Yeah,
we could see it happen.
I wouldn't be dead against it. I think Ziyech don't want to be here, so is there actually any point in playing him? And if we're being honest, I actually think Hutchinson would probably offer more than he would anyway. Someone that's young, hungry to first opportunity. Chelsea debut and whatnot, I'd be more inclined to put him in than Ziyech. Broja has to start this game. I mean, if he can't, I thought he had to start Zagreb. He didn't. If he doesn't start this game, it's bordering on ridiculous. Really, he needs the opportunities. He needs the minutes. He's got more of a future here than Aubameyang does. So I think it would make sense to use him from the off. I mean, I think the bench will be strong. There'll be options there. I think Aubameyang, Sterling, and whatnot. But I mean, how much rotation do you see City putting in as well? Because I don't know if Potter will view it as, yes, we'll make some changes, but this is like quite a good opportunity for us. I mean, how many changes do you think City will make? I mean, do you expect to see Haaland, for example?
Yeah, you might do, because he didn't start the last match, which is
No.
like, I don't know why you're just bullying us like that for no reason. Anywhere else, you could see rotation. I just think if you're not in the World Cup, you might start. If you're in the World Cup, you're definitely not starting. That's the way I see it. But there would be rotation. Definitely.
Yeah, I reckon so. I mean, I just wanted to touch on Mason Mount coming in for a lot of criticism. I think some of it fully justified. People, I mean, I don't get people that go out of their way and actively spend minutes and hours out of their day to slander a player that plays for their club and like actively, wanting them to do shit to suit their agenda. I'm not about that, and it's just a complete waste of time. But Mount is someone that is obviously going to be here for a number of years. Whether that's right or wrong, that remains that's a separate discussion. He probably is going to sign a new 6-year contract, but his performances have been a big problem, and he's not been good enough for a number of games this season. The majority of this season, bar maybe 3 or 4 games, not been good enough. And you can't discount 2 Players of the Year awards, of course. But was that due to the level from him being really high, or was that because the level from everyone else was so low, or is it somewhere in the middle? That's the thing. I mean, where do you stand on Mount? I mean, people comparing him to Frank Lampard and whatnot. I mean, I think that's a little bit wide of the mark. Yes, his numbers are at the same age or a little bit similar, but I don't know. I just think Mount needs to not go back to basics, but he needs to earn his place in the team again, because right now he doesn't really warrant being in the starting lineup.
That's literally it. I think with Mount, people put too much pressure on his shoulders. If we just looked at him as a young player who's growing and just you let him grow in peace, people wouldn't really be too critical of him, because everyone acts like he's the face of this club when he's not. And when people act like he's the one carrying us, when never really has done. He's been pivotal in parts, like the run to the Champions League. But other than 2021, I don't think he's ever been fully consistent for us. His open play creativity is really not good enough. There can be a string of games where he plays with zero impact, and everyone's just saying it's all because of his off the ball movement, and that's the only thing saving him. And yeah, he's great. He's got great work rate. I'll never take that side of his game away. But his progressive plays aren't good enough. His ball retention isn't good enough. His open play creativity isn't good enough. His decision making isn't good enough. And they all need to improve. Now, I'm not saying Mount's the only reason why we're playing like crap. I think everybody except 4 players are holding a lot of criticism this season. But people put the likes of Mason Mount on a pedestal, and they say he's the one that's going to be carrying us. He's our best player and stuff like that. You put too much responsibility on his shoulders. He's not at that level.
No.
And once people accept that, they'll let him just grow to whatever standard he's going to be at. It'll probably be a lot more peaceful around him. But there's a contingent of fans who act like he's the worst player in our squad. There's a contingent of fans who act like he's the best player in our squad since Frank Lampard. And neither are correct. Just let the guy's not been good for a while, and we know what his quality is. We know where he can be. We just need to see it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what did you make of the comments that I don't know if it's taken out of context or not? That's kind of whatever people view it as. But what did you make of Graham Potter's comments about saying that he likes to play? That those comments. I mean, I can't remember the exact comments. I mean, I might be slightly out there. You've seen that clip, haven't you?
Mm-hmm. And I like Potter. And I'm going to stand by him through this run. But I didn't like that. And there's been a few things in this press conference I don't like. And to me, the press conference room is like its own football pitch. And you need to be able to master that. Like Tuchel I never felt any drop of confidence after any of his press conferences. Even Lampard, and we know what the football was like under Lampard, but he was always good in the press conferences. I always thought he handled himself well, never really spoke out of his arse, and spoke with confidence. Potter, he's not saying the right things for me. He really isn't. And you can't take it all as gospel, but Mount sounds like he's got a heavy influence on the squad. The stuff where he was saying the boys gave everything after I just watched them get bopped off the park by Arsenal for 90 minutes. They didn't give everything. And if they did, that level isn't good enough. Potter needs to realise the standard that's at Chelsea Football Club. And he can't lower it. This is my thing. Like, he will be the one in charge of what the mentality is at Chelsea over the next few years. And I don't want this, they're all just good guys. They did their best. They work hard. They try everything. I need results. Football is a game of execution. Effort only takes you so far. And to me as well, I lost my train of thought on it. But I just think the way Potter's speaking in these press conferences is not giving me a great bit of confidence in the overall squad. I think there's just an acceptance of the level that we're at, which I don't really like.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Well, I think what's also clear for me is that I think apart from maybe one or two, and it's not everyone in the squad, but there's a massive lack of elite level mentalities within this team. I think you can look at Thiago. I think you can look at Thiago Silva, and you can look at perhaps Reece James. I look at those two players, and I think there's probably two. Those are maybe the only two players, maybe a couple of others, that would die for the badge, that would go to war on the pitch for this club and would do whatever it takes to win. No one else has got for me, no one else shows that. No one else would die on the pitch to win this. And when you've had the likes of JT, Lampard, Cech, Drogba, these are guys that would go to war for each other on the pitch and do whatever it takes to win. We don't have those characters anymore. And it's so obvious and it's setting us back a lot. No elite level mentalities, no top characters. Could you imagine if we were playing that badly when we had those guys? They would be shouting at each other, digging each other out on the pitch. Where are those leaders on the pitch on Sunday? Like, the level of performance unacceptable. Where are those players demanding more from their teammates? It's not there. And as you say, that's what happens when you don't have high standards, or the standards are allowed to drop within a squad or at a club. Then that sort of mediocre standard becomes the accepted standard. And that's not what playing for Chelsea is about. It's about winning the big trophies. It's about playing at the top of your game, playing with some of the best players in the world. And it's about having an elite level mindset. And unfortunately, within the squad, there are far too many weak mentalities in this team. And until that changes, I think we're going to continue to have problems.
Yeah, completely agree with that. I think the biggest problem is that we don't really have a team right now. And that's why when I heard the news from Simon Phillips, I was like, cool. Just confirms everything I've heard. Get rid. The whole team just needs to be ripped apart and we need to start again. Same way Arteta did it, same way Klopp did. We just have to rip everything up and we have to start straight from scratch.
Yeah, it is a simple. I mean, yeah, I think that there's a lot of players here that don't want to be. As I said, there's a lot of players that aren't good enough, and this is going to take a lot of windows to sort out. And I think the most important thing is to take a hard stance. Like, I don't want to use Arsenal as a reference point, but like Arteta did with Aubameyang, a big player, the club captain, he said, "Look, you're not behaving, or your discipline's poor, you're late for stuff, you're the captain, you're setting a bad example and whatnot." He got rid of him. Probably one of Arsenal's best players at the time. They play much better football without him now, and that's a big call. And I think maybe Potter's going to have to look at it and make some big calls in terms of players that don't want to be here, players that have come in for big money but clearly aren't good enough. They're just going to have to be moved on, and we're going to have to sort of have a ruthless streak in us and get players in that want to be here, and get players in that are of the required standard. And I think that's what's going to take time, and people haven't got patience. They want a rebuild that takes 2 to 3 years, and they want it in 2 months. And that's not how football works. That's not how building a football team works. I'm not saying that Arsenal are the blueprint for a rebuild. They're not. They've won 1 FA Cup under Arteta, but you can see the work that he's put in over the seasons he's been here, and each season they have got progressively better. Now, I think as a fan, I don't know about you, but for me, I can put up with not winning things if I can see signs of progress season on season and see that things are getting better and that is building up to winning something. If I can see that, then that's more acceptable. What's unacceptable and what is kind of the situation at the moment and has been a situation is that, you know, we've got someone in for the long term, and yet in terms of performances, you can't really see anything changing at the moment. I don't mean necessarily under Potter, but from Tuchel to Potter, not much is changing. And that's where I think people can become disengaged with the process and whatnot. But I think that's still a bit of a way down the line for me in terms of if in a year's time we're still having this conversation, then yeah, for sure, you can maybe say, is Potter actually the right guy? But for now, you've just got to accept that, yes, whilst the standards at Chelsea will always be the same, we may be not at the moment, we're not quite at those standards, and we're going to have to be patient, and people are going to have to adjust their expectations from what they expect from this group of players, because right now, to expect this group of players to win anything in terms of trophies, I think it's bordering on unrealistic at the moment. And as a Chelsea fan, it's kind of shocking to say that, because, you know, we've always had a squad that's good enough to compete for trophies, but at the moment, this team has not got that. It's not got the attitude for me. It's not got the spine of the team. It's not got the mentality. It's not got the quality to win any trophies. And that's really concerning.
Completely agree. And it's not going to change for a while. So literally just buckle up. And I know the performances aren't going to be good, but at least we can assess what players are good enough for us and what players aren't. And then we can have a very honest assessment when the season's done, and we can move from there.
Yeah. No, I would agree with it. I mean, yes, let's round out with some score predictions for tomorrow night. Obviously, we're both making a trip up to the Etihad. I mean, it'd be nice to take a win back down to London with us. But realistically, what are you expecting?
We'll say Chelsea win on penalties and try and stay positive.
Oh, yeah, there's no extra time, is there? We'll just go straight to pens.
Straight to pens.
Straight to pens. Oh, that works a bit better. I mean, I wouldn't mind a penalty shootout. I'm going to go... I might tend to agree. I'm going to go 1-1 draw in normal time, and then we win it on the pens. Let's see what happens. But yeah, guys, seems like a good point to round out this episode. Thanks for tuning in. As always, make sure you smash the likes on the way out, and subscribe to Chelsea Fan TV if you haven't done already. And make sure you check out Lewis's vlog dropping on the channel after the City game tomorrow. But yeah, guys, take care. Up the Chelsea, and we'll catch you in another episode soon.